Well, mine's are differently.
All right. I'm going to call to order the city council meeting of April 9th, 2024. I know why we do that now because it makes it really easy to identify the recording when we first spin it up. If you would join me, Nick Campbell, would you mind leading us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I get a roll call of officers, please?
Westwood,
Here.
Conley, Daniel, here, Keith, present, Miller,
Here.
Ronnie, yes, Ruben, here.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
I would move to adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Let's do a roll call vote.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith? Yes. Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Ruben?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. We have two meetings. It can be done individually or jointly, however the motioner would prefer.
I move to approve the minutes of March 12th and 26th.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's do a roll call vote.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Ruben?
Yes.
All right, I love nice boring meetings. Warrants payable, who would like to introduce and discuss those? Actually, let's move to do them. Yeah, thank you.
I move to approve warrants payable in the amount of $217,474.27.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Is there anything weird in there?
No, not really. 48,000 of it was a budgeted vehicle for public works from Hardin Chevrolet. So we actually had budgeted $80,000 for that. We paid Republic Services $52,895, and $7,000 of that was for recycling of the glass. So
We
that's
paid
why
to recycle the glass?
we always have. We pay to recycle a lot of things. They don't give us money for anything really, so anything else? Notice?
Great West was expensive, no offense, you guys.
That's true.
You get what you pay for.
I would just like to encourage that any of the council members, particularly the newer council members, if you have not yet had the opportunity to go through that process and be part of the process of approving warrants, I highly encourage you to do so. It lets you understand what's happening and what's going on, and that's part of your responsibility, and seize the opportunity. If there's no other discussion, let's go ahead and do a vote, please. Roll call.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Ruben?
Yes.
All right, mayor's business. A couple of things. Some of you may have seen the report about trash down at the Eagles Nest property. There was a welcome to trespasser. I don't know how to qualify it anyway. The property owner was contacted, and that has now been cleaned up. He took care of that and reached out to me and let me know it was done. Originally, we're gonna go out, I was gonna go out with Public Works and remove that, just because we were concerned about the bear attractant. But I had reached out to the property owner basically to ensure that we had permission, and he said, "Don't you dare touch it, I'll be right down to get it." So he took care of that, and that was good.
What was there?
Some trash. So
Okay.
basically, there was a camper that had been down on what was an abandoned property, and as a parting gift, they emptied everything out of their camper into a big pile as they left.
Lovely.
So, yeah. On the bright side, I don't think they'll be back. Because they now have a warrant for dumping trash in the middle of town, so they'll probably not come back and visit again. Budget update, I don't have a particular update other than I do still have the resolution, and it says, just for record, that we will have a budget up no later than May. I am attending a conference the first week in May, and one of their big topics, like the first half day, is budget from beginning to end, so I hope that that will play a role in it. The other part of that resolution is that the plan is that each department head will, not later than 30 days prior to the scheduled public hearing on the budget, will come and give a 20 to 30 minute presentation. And so they have been instructed, and they are working on how to not only show what their budget is, but what the residents are getting for that budget. So we can tell that story. And I'm still working on the presentation to kind of tell our story so that people can understand it. Other than that, the only budget update that I have is that the audit is still oddly not available on the state website. However, they did email a PDF to Lonnie, and so we were able to get that posted onto the website, and I shared that with everybody after first emailing out the financial report, the annual financial report. One of the things worth mentioning on that annual financial report is they told us what the cost is of doing that. It was $32,000. Now that's in conjunction with doing their audit. And one of the audit findings is that we don't have somebody independently doing our annual budget outside of them doing it. If that's a concern for anybody, we know what the cost is. It's about $35,000 to have somebody duplicate the efforts. And as I've talked to individual council members, the sense I've got is certainly, no, all that does is clear up a check mark, which we can explain by saying we found better things to spend $35,000 on. But I wanted to make it very evident, if there's a concern about that finding, we can resolve it. It's just throwing some money at it. So other than that, it's available on the website. You all have a copy of it, and I welcome discussions and conversations. I do have one member of the public who's reached out that I look forward to having some conversations and hearing what those concerns are. So that is out there. Any other questions on the budget that I'm not thinking to answer? All right, airport update. I did get back from our city attorney the latest version of the agreement, basically with his comments. I'm a little bit confused because it says this is what they sent us, superimposing what city council had previously approved, and I'm not able to kind of ascertain. But when I talked with him on Friday, the thing that I saw that I was the most concerned about was the termination needs, basically what happened if the county terminated the agreement. So we talked about if the city terminated the agreement, we understood that we needed to pay our portion of, sort of things are out there. But there was a real sticking point over any improvements made to the land and the property, and the new language presented by the county's attorney said, in the case of termination by the county, each municipality shall be entitled to retention of all improvements and property which are fixtures upon that municipality without any payment to the county or to other party. So basically, that was the big thing I was concerned about, is that they couldn't come in and say, we put down a new runway, you need to pay us for that and there. So it's our property, and real property improvements retain there. If there is equipment that was purchased for it and we were to take that over, then it would be, proportional distribution of assets from there. So, but the real property was kind of the concern there. The other thing that had come up with the earlier agreement was representation. There was a concern that the representation was 3 from the county and 2 from each of the municipalities. My initial thinking was the 4 from the municipalities outweighed the county. But council's input was that they wanted each municipality to have an equal weight. It was originally proposed to go to 2 each, but the county had issues with that because they wanted to provide full representation. to, all of the 3 areas within the county. And so what we're gonna do is just bump that up to 9. And then if Bridger, one of the concerns was if Bridger couldn't fill all 3 of their positions, then maybe they would have unequal representation. There's not a requirement that they fill all 3, but certainly that takes it back to where everybody has equal representation. And particularly, they could make a quick appointment if there was a need to make sure they had their representation. Okay. Any other comments or concerns that council wanted me to look at as we get closer to that? I think those are kind of the 2 outstanding issues.
Does it look like you'll be able to get this settled by the end of May? Was it May, the end of May that we were doing? Yeah.
I think we can.
Okay.
All right.
Let me write a note to myself. Who have I brought these little things for?
Yeah.
When I meet with them on Thursday, it's interesting, I said that has not been the biggest fire that needs to be addressed and put out. So it's still there, it's not forgotten, but other things are going on. The only other thing, is that, we did receive all of the applicants. We received 3 applicants for the outsourced planning services. We had a meeting on Friday, that I had some kind of an advisory panel to give me input. The one takeaway from there is that our planning board really wants a live person present for those planning board meetings. And so, I have not yet made a final decision. I will be, but I need to look at how we're going to address that. One of the ideas that has been floated, in fact, has been recommended by staff and looked at before, is that we have a part-time person who is kind of the initial gateway that redirects all the planning board stuff that comes in. Anything, of course, that requires that level of expertise, we hand off to them, but that's a much cheaper front end. In talking with Lonnie, who serves as our kind of department head of the front office, she did not feel that workload could be added to the current mix. They're already pretty swamped. So it'll probably be Thursday before I have time to dive into that, but I'm hoping to make a decision before the end of this week. I had a request out. Is that something that is a decision that can just be executed by the mayor in the course of
Yeah.
business?
I think
Or do I need a council approval to do that when it happens?
to do what?
To say award company X
Oh,
the contract that's,
I think the last time it came, the final one came for approval through the council.
through the council?
But not all, the council didn't pick one.
No, council didn't pick it, but the decision is basically ratified by the council after I make a decision.
I believe
So
so.
I will have that for the next meeting. That means that we will probably have a couple of days where we don't actually have a planning person on board for a week, and we'll be all right. Rephrase, it'll be me. We won't have a qualified planning person on board for a week. We've been there before. I think that's all I had for mayor's report, unless there's anything else council wanted to report on that I missed. All right. Next on the agenda, we had a presentation schedule. We have, hi. Did you want to, share your presentation at all, or do you just want to speak
because
to your sheet?
Because I didn't get you a presentation in time, I just printed stuff out.
Okay.
So sorry if people.
No, that's, I had the big long one you mailed out, so I didn't know if that
Oh,
was
that's
something
the
you wanted to.
that's the annual report, and you're welcome to share that with anybody. You know, that basically just, that's for all of Region 5, so.
That's in our packet.
Okay.
So we can
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's in the packet, so everybody has that.
So hopefully everyone read and memorized that entire thing.
We were anticipating a quiz. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, I'm not supposed to stand up, am I?
No, go ahead, stand up, say
Oh,
who
okay.
you are, just for the record and the minutes.
Am I in the right spot?
And after 7.5 minutes, there's a little buzz that'll come up, and it
Oh.
just gets stronger and stronger until
That's intense.
10
It
minutes.
did shock me though, right? So Daniel McHugh, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Region 5 Bear Specialist. So I'm the Red Lodge Area Bear Specialist, and a couple things that I want to talk about. So does everybody up there have one of these?
We do.
Okay, good. So I'll try to be quick here, but just a couple things. Number one, I wanted to touch on 2023 and kind of some of the stuff. It was my first season in Red Lodge, so I got to hit the ground running, put it that way. A lot going on with bears in the area, so just to touch on 2023, 80 conflicts in Carbon County, and really the bear issue's Carbon County-wide. It's not just Red Lodge, but it's primarily Red Lodge. As you can see, 95% of those were in or around Red Lodge. So not at all in city limits, but very near. I did not count any trash conflicts within the town of Red Lodge. It was impossible. I had to have specifically one person just to count all the trash cans. We would have, let's just put it this way, we would have Jackson numbers if I counted those. We'd have Jackson, maybe, Lake Tahoe type numbers. So we have some good, the trash cans in place, that's a good start, but we have a lot of bear issues. So, the city did a great job. I worked with Courtney a lot last year on getting warnings out. So basically what we were doing is we would patrol, check trash cans. If we found an address where a bear had gotten into trash, we were forwarding that to Courtney. She would send them a warning. That worked really well because that would usually initiate a call. At first my number was on there, so it initiated a call to me. That was a mistake. Eventually it went back to Courtney, and she was fielding a lot of the calls. And a lot of them were like, people saying, well, hey, my trash can's not working, and then we could get them a trash can replaced, problem solved, or, hey, this is a vacation rental, that was a big issue. Now, I would say not the big vacation rental companies like AAA and stuff like that, but independent vacation rental owners, it's a lot harder to kind of figure out how to get them the right information so the people that are coming in and staying there know how to properly use those cans, and they can be tricky. So we talked a lot about how to get the information out so people that are not from here could figure out how to work the cans, and that's a work in progress. But 31 warnings were issued from the city with our help, FAPs. We need to continue that. If that stops, the problems are just going to get worse. We issued 12 warnings, verbally, 2 written warnings, and I believe 1 fine to the Chateau Rouge. 8 black bears were lethally removed by me. And then, there were, so 4 of them were trapped. So, and then I think 4 were either shot or they died some other way that had to do with a conflict. And that's just in the area. So a lot of bears removed. I would imagine that's going to be one of those things that's going to continue over the next couple years, where we're going to be removing a lot of bears. And that's going to be, it's just a harsh reality. There's a lot of bears that live within city limits of Red Lodge. They do not leave. I could chop them and I could move them, but they would be right back within 20 minutes, or they would be in somebody else's backyard causing issues there. So these are bears that are extremely habituated, that the community's kind of come to accept as kind of mascots in a way. And that's a challenge. We've got to learn to try to figure out how to reconfigure people's thinking with tolerating bears in our lawn, or else it's gonna, the worst possible result is that somebody gets hurt. So that's what we're trying to avoid. And we have both black and grizzly bears. So that's why we have to be, at least for the next couple of years, have to be kind of harsh on bears and very strict with people and keep up with that, or else, something really bad could happen. I kind of touched on the, spread the word to, vacation rental owners. A lot of them, again, are in Red Lodge city limits, outside on the outskirts, and I've been working with the county, working with Republic, trying to get, on the outskirts of town, you don't have trash cans everywhere. In town, you have a lot, and Republic's done good at replacing them and getting new cans, but again, here in the next couple months, we'll see how good. It's gonna be interesting. Moving forward, what we're looking to do is start a Bear Smart, make Red Lodge a Bear Smart community. And for those of you that are interested in what a Bear Smart community is, I think I sent, did I send you a link to a Bear Smart?
I don't
We gotta spend
remember
money.
seeing it off the there, we talked about it.
Yeah, so I'll double check that email I sent you, but I can forward that to you as well.
I can double check it as well, and
Um,
then we can put that on the webpage, particularly after you've talked about kind of that community group. And by the way, the editor of our paper is aware as well, and so he's gonna probably
Yeah,
follow up with you afterwards, especially when you lead with something like, we had to have 8 black bears lethally removed.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll get people's attention.
well, and that's, to be honest, we've been more heavy-handed with making that available information too. Not every time a black bear gets, killed, or euthanized, are we trying to let everybody know about that. We're not hiding it, but here it's an important thing to let people know, because that's, some communities would cheer to figure out that you killed a black bear, and some communities cry, and it's kind of, finding that balance, say, hey, who are we, and what's our values here, so. Anyway, when it comes to a Bear Smart community, there's a whole list of kind of what that is on this page, and you guys can read through it in detail, but basically, it's shifting the culture. So it starts out, we're trying right now to form a board of probably 5 to 7 people. We've got, Mike Maples from the city, or from Public Works, that's gonna be on there, and then we've got Ryan Kaufman from Republic Services, who's gonna be on there, and then we're kind of working on solidifying the rest of the group. Those people, basically their main function is gonna be a lot of the preventative stuff that I don't really have time to do, that we really need in the town of Red Lodge, whether it be education, whether it be picking fruit, organizing some sort of education events, whatever it is, they're gonna, kind of spearhead that. I've got some examples in here, that you guys can go through, but, one of them, HOAs, working with HOAs, because they're maybe outside of city limits, and they have their own little rules. So working with them to try to figure out how to make them more Bear Smart. And then, let's see, funding is a big one. We're really low on budget. Unfortunately, I can't electrify every chicken coop. I know in city limits, you're not allowed to have chickens, thankfully. But stuff like that's just a good example of when you have an attractant, we don't always have time to just pick up trash for everybody like you guys did the other day. And sometimes it's as simple as just getting a group of people out there to clean something up that I can't really do. And then following some of this stuff, once we kind of get the Bear Smart community going, then it's gonna be on me to kind of identify which bears are frequenters that live here, that we're gonna have to continue to remove, which bears are just passing through, and then hopefully that can dampen it, where we're not having every single night, we're having a whole street where every can's tipped over. It's just, occasionally a can gets tipped over. That's a more normal mountain town kind of situation with bears, so that's the goal. There you go. That's it.
We have the link.
So that's what it looks like right there. There's a board.
What's the URL on the net?
It'll be posted online. Bearsmart.com.
Bearsmart.com, okay.
So how many bears call Red Lodge home?
Oh, I don't know, I've only been here 1 year, but we last year, I think by August, there were 7 that I knew of that were living in town every night, tipping over cans. And I probably removed 2 of those, would be my guess.
Okay.
And then there's the grizzly sow that we all know about. So she's got 2 yearlings this year, and she's figured out trash pretty good. If she hadn't before, she definitely has now.
And she's in town?
She's not in town at the exact moment, but, I mean, she might be, I don't know. She doesn't have a caller, I'm guessing not. She usually comes out early May, and then she kind of spends a lot of time on Sunlight Ranch, but she kind of moves through Red Lodge, and then sometimes gets picked up on people's game cameras. She used to have a caller so I could track her before, now I can't. But again, with a lot of people, a black bear gets into their trash and they're like, oh, what's the big deal? But when a grizzly bear gets into their trash, it's a big deal, right? And it's also, she's become kind of a icon for some people in the community too, and that's another major downside, is that when it's a lot harder to make progress when everybody really loves the bears, but they're bears that are high potential for human safety risk. So, she's gonna continue to be a challenge, but there's a lot. There's a lot.
I have a few questions, actually. And both the city and the MFWP What is the next step after a warning? You said you give one fine, and how much is that fine?
So we can only give fines if we can actually physically prove that a grizzly bear got trash. So if there's just trash, not a grizzly bear, any bear.
Any bear, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Great, thank you.
If there's just trash scattered around the street, even if there's bear tracks, there's really no way that our enforcement can issue a fine. It has to be someone saw it, we saw it, or is on camera or something like that. You guys have different rules and that it's a little, that's kind of for you guys to.
Still kind of the same burden of proof, though. You've got to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, if it's getting.
Tracks around the.
We were sending pictures to you guys, we were sending pictures to Courtney, and then I would add it to the Excel sheet. And I don't know, who took over for Courtney?
Funny you should ask.
You're a busy guy.
We have that position open. We're
Yeah.
looking to offload that.
So, I was sending pictures to Courtney, and she was sending the warnings out, and then the picture was kind of the evidence. And then, I don't know, the fines, when I asked her what the fines were, she said it was kind of up to you guys, depending on it could be like $25, and could go all the way up depending on how many times it had happened.
His max is
My-
500 is the most he can ever.
Yeah.
In the city, my understanding is that the FWP actually, your fines can go up significantly higher.
Ours are.
You can
way
get up
better.
to $1,000, so.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's,
And so take the Chateau Rouge, for example. We had documented bears going in to their dumpster multiple times. And so we could actually issue them a fine, and we had issued them multiple warnings. We're not trying to fine people, we're just trying to light a fire a little bit and get them to go, hey, what can we do? Or at least come to us for help and all that, so.
That was gonna be my question is, can we use County for a resource if we are having issues with Republic? 'Cause I also work with short-term rentals and as well as my own personal trash can, and when they break down, we don't always get cans right away. A lot of times we're out there just scanning, making sure nothing's happening. One specific example is a dumpster situation, to where bear can actually pull back the lid,
Yeah.
and we've tried harnessing that down, and we're kind of at loss of what else. We've been working with Republic to try and get a custom can made even at this point, and they sent us the exact same can last week.
Yeah, great.
So, it's
Well,
cool.
it's always, first of all, one big issue with the level of habituated bears that we have is many of them have figured the cans out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And those are bears that, again, they just have to, eventually we have to trap them. I'm trying to kind of get a good handle on the trash situation first before I start trapping bears, because, I mean, I've trapped bears and removed them out of town for different stuff, like breaking into houses and buildings.
Yeah.
And it turned out that they were also bears living in town getting trash. But I haven't trapped them specifically for trash yet. Reason being is, I mean, it doesn't solve the problem, it solves it temporarily.
Yeah.
So my first comment would be call me.
Okay.
I can situation to situation, get a hold of Ryan and get that figured out. But on a large scale, that's why I need a working group for stuff like that. Because when things get going crazy in July, or if there's serious stuff, like somebody gets mauled or something like that.
Yep.
Trash is on the bottom of the list for me for things, and so I can send a message. Last year what I was doing is I'd send a text to Ryan, hey, can you get a new trash can at this address? Sometimes it was immediate, that was a long time. They didn't always deliver a can that was necessarily better, but, it's just whack-a-mole, just constantly trying.
Sure.
and just to clarify, what you're putting together is an organization that's not just dependent on the city. And we do have city representation will be on it, so
Yep.
our public works director has volunteered for that. So there will be city involvement on that, but this is a,
Community-wide. Community-wide, so it's not just the city of Red Lodge, but city of Red Lodge is the hub of most of the problems, so.
Of course you
and so we have your information, and like I said, I'm hoping that you'll be able to follow up with Alistair and get the word out
Well,
there.
and yeah, you guys have been
Yeah.
great. Eleanor's just put out an article that was really awesome, and they've been working with us pretty close already, so, yeah.
And maybe actually showing damage,
What's that?
maybe actually showing pictures of damage.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can do better at documenting that kind of stuff. And again, so we're doing like an education at the brewery here, end of the month, I think the 22nd or something like that. I'll email that to you too.
And then we have a Google Groups that we can blast it out to.
Great, and I've been working with Wildlife Sightings, Red Lodge Wildlife Sightings, to try to get them to put a bear messaging thing, and so I'm trying to figure out how to, A, do my small scale job, which is deal with conflicts as they arise, and then B, get stuff out at scale, and that's the harder part of my
How
job,
do you
so.
identify problem bears, ones that are repeat offenders?
Well, any possible evidence that I have at a call I use, so usually, a lot of times, worst case scenario, you go and you have no evidence, you put a camera up, and then the bear comes back in and you have an image of the bear. Sometimes they have identifiers, little nicks in their ears, certain chest blazes, stuff like that. Sometimes it's just a big,
Because they eat garbage.
yeah, well, there's a couple of those, so that's not a great identifier, but, a lot, but it's anything from hair, if there's hair on a fence, if tracks are great, because if I have a good clear track, I can measure the width of it, and I can have an idea of what the age and size of the bear is potentially, and then just putting all that information together. These bears they show up as a number, but many of these bears, they were involved with maybe 10 conflicts, and I had been tracking them for the entire summer, and so when I finally got them, I knew exactly what their history was. So it's not just like I see a bear that's getting into trash and I shoot it type of deal. It's a very, I really narrow it down. And any bears that I relocated 3 bears out of Red Lodge last year. 2 of them ended up getting involved with conflicts other places out of Red Lodge, but they were bears that I had no evidence were conflict bears, so I couldn't remove them. So I try to just really narrow down as best as I can.
Do they hibernate here in Red Lodge?
I don't have any collars on any bears here, and black bears at least, so it's hard to say. We are gonna put some collars out this year, but probably only like 3, and they're not all gonna be in town. I've heard rumors that bears do. We had one up on the ski hill. Some of you may have heard about that this year. That den right by the ski hut up at the top, which.
I wonder about the added up here, the old mine entrance.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, yeah. I mean, they really like, not to get too in the weeds, I know you're on time, but they like security, so if they can get somewhere that gets a lot of snow, north slopes, high up, that's usually what they like, but if they're so used to just coming down into town and hitting the same trash can every year, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Thank you, Daniel.
Not a problem, thank you for having me, appreciate it.
All right, we've reached the section on the agenda that will open it up for public comment. This specifically is for public comment and anything that is on the agenda tonight. This is your opportunity to address council. I'll go ahead and open the public comment for agenda items at this time. We'll stop sharing this. Is there anybody in the room? Online, if you're interested in commenting on the agenda, please come off mute or ideally turn your camera on so we see you out there. Going twice. 3 times, we'll close the public comment on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion for ordinance 968.
Do you want to open?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna open a public comment. This has a public comment for this is on 968, which is an ordinance of the city council of the city, Red Lodge, Montana, to set the process in which fees are collected for solid waste. So this is a specific item on the agenda, and procedurally, we have to have a public comment on that. So I'll open that public comment.
Is this a hearing or just?
This is the
Public
public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do during the public hearing? Do I present it?
You
This is,
open it.
it's the public comment.
And then close it.
Going twice, anyone? Bueller? Bueller? If you're too young and you don't get that reference, shame on you. 3 times, we'll close the public hearing. And I will now take a motion, on the ordinance.
I move to approve ordinance 968, set process in which fees are collected for solid waste. On the second reading.
All right, so I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second from Conley, and the second reading, and discussion.
If you guys are okay, I'm gonna introduce this. We talked about this at our March 12th meeting, and then we had our first reading and hearing on March 26th. So a little bit of background. For years, we've been collecting our solid waste fees via property taxes, which first go to the county and then come to the city. Property taxes are paid in arrears, sometimes many months in arrears, but our solid waste provider is paid each month. So in essence, the city's been acting as a bank by paying solid waste fees for property owners and then turning around and collecting those fees from the taxpayers. This can sometimes create a shortfall in the city coffers, especially when taxpayers don't pay their bills on time. Our auditors recommended we correct this situation. So, this ordinance will do that. So solid waste fees are approximately $330 annually per household. The ordinance changes only the way we collect these fees by placing that amount on monthly utility bills instead of property taxes. The amount billed would be approximately $28 per month. So just to be clear, this is not an increase in what taxpayers are already paying for. The result would be in the collection from the taxpayers and payment amounts to Republic being better aligned and put the city in a better position to eliminate any shortfalls. And then some side notes, the city does tack on a 3% fee for doing the work of collecting payments and then sending that money to Republic. This would begin starting with the July's utility bill. There would be a period of what will look like overlapping payments, but will actually just be taxes catching up with payments. For example, this May's 2024 tax payment covers payments that will have already been made to Republic by the city for the second half of 2023. And then this November's tax payment covers the first half of 2024. And then there's just another side note, we would have to pay a lot more for our solid waste removal if not for the city's involvement. It would basically be every man for himself, and rates would probably be double what they are now.
So that, in the county, folks are paying about double what we are. And my understanding is that 3% is something that we've been doing for overhead for a while for that processing.
That's not new.
But there was a question about whether we had it properly documented, and so this is just properly documenting as part of that process. Thank you. That was a really, really good write-up. I hope that, is that information that you could share? Because I'm gonna look forward to the press, because we're gonna need to make sure that we message this out. And particularly, like you said, this is not a change in the fees. This is just a change in how we collect those fees.
Yep, I can, if you give me your email address, I'll just send you, it's on a PowerPoint.
Okay, I'll email you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? That was a great presentation. I know we've stumbled through this a couple times, so I appreciate you documenting it and making it clear and straightforward.
The only other thing that I would do is point out that the city's literally $500,000 out of pocket before they get reimbursed. Because I was figuring it out that between January to November, that's 11 months. Jody just said that to Republic was 52,000. I was figuring 44,000. So 44,000 times 11.
Actually, 7,000 of that was for recycling,
Recycling.
so
So-
it's closer to your
Yeah.
original number.
So the 44. So if the city pays $44,000 for January through November, then they get paid for January through June. There's still another 6 months plus another 5 months in the next year.
Yeah.
So they're always about 11 months out, and 11 times 44,000 is 484,000.
It is problematic, and we are a service organization. There are a lot of services we provide as a city. Bank doesn't need to be one of them, so.
Bad accounting.
Yeah, it's something that should have been addressed, and as soon as we identified it, we're getting it addressed. So, like I said, we just need to go ahead and make sure we do our best to communicate that out now. And then also again in November, when the tax statements come out and people say, have I already paid this? Well, yeah, you started to pay in July. This is your payment for January, a year ago. That's gonna be, it'll, from January up to June.
But then there won't be a charge on the May statement.
That's correct. Next year, their taxes won't have those charges associated with it.
Yeah, they'll actually see a reduction
So their
in their.
property tax will go down.
I don't know that I dare say that in today's market, but
That charge will be on.
Okay.
our charge won't be on it
There won't be a
anymore.
charge for garbage collection.
There we go. All right, any other comments? All right, roll call vote, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Cuthberт?
Motion passes, thank you. I will entertain a motion for resolution number 3622.
I move to approve, resolution number 3622, first amendment, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Red Lodge setting business registration fees.
Have a second from Councilmember Keys.
So
Discussion.
this is setting, our business registration fees. We have, nothing has changed from our last meeting. We've set it up as tiers. Tier 1 is $100, Tier 2 is $200, Tier 3 is $250. Tier 1 is all general services. It includes, such things as contractors, businesses that provide a personal service, retail businesses, and home-based businesses. Tier 2 are our temporary vendors, and there is a definition out there for a temporary vendor, but basically it's a business that don't operate more than 90 days within the city limits. Tier 3 are lodging and prepared consumables. So that would be all of our hotel, motels, bed and breakfast, short-term rentals, and businesses that sell prepared food, drinks, and smoked products. And just so you know, we did clarify in this that the fees they won't stack. So if you're a hotel and and you have a restaurant in it, you would just pay one fee. You wouldn't pay twice. So that has been fixed.
And this was basically driven by change in state ordinance that said you couldn't distinguish and tier your fees based on alcohol licenses or other controlled products. And then it was up for action last time, but we got some feedback from the public about how come we haven't presented something about business registration fees at the Red Lodge Business Association meetings. And so this body felt that it wouldn't hurt to postpone it for a couple of weeks. That happened yesterday, so they've all had a chance for input there, and I think most of them understood it, but I'm glad we slowed down and did it right.
I don't believe that we had any comments from Red Lodge Business Alliance, and I know I was there, Chris was there, Chelsea was there, and I handed out the tiers, and
I think most people at that meeting probably saw a reduction.
because it was $350 at top,
Mm-hmm.
now it's $250.
And those tax.
All right. Any other discussion?
We'll go to business. Okay.
Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on resolution 3622, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Reed?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Cuthberт?
Yes.
All right, I will entertain a motion for resolution number 3647.
I move to approve resolution number 3647, resolution of intent to award phase 2 and 3 of the stormwater project.
All right, I have a motion by Conley and a second by Councilmember, Daniel, thank you. I had that, 4 hours of sleep, I apologize. Is there any discussion from the table, please?
I really appreciate the presentation of the stormwater project phases. I think it made it fairly clear what was happening, and I love that we had 4 different companies bid on it. And I really appreciate that the low bid happened to be the company that did and completed phase 1 in one summer.
I would like to raise my hand. I would like to share some comments. I do get to discuss. There was, by way of information for the council, a challenge that came in. We received from one of the vendors there is a state statute that says, any state that, if a vendor from another state which has penalties or restrictions for vendors makes a bid, that you have to tack on a 5% to the bid. And we had two bids that were close enough that I can't think it raised a flag, and so they reached out and did what's called a challenge to the bid process. Great West looked into it, our city attorney looked into it. In an interesting turn of events, the company that won the bid is an Inc., and their definition of what it takes to be, the test of what it takes to be based in Montana, if you're an Inc., is different than what it is if you happen to be an LLC. If you're an LLC, the majority of your principals have to live in the state where it's happening. Interestingly enough, the bid company that made the challenge is an LLC. They have two principals that live in Utah and one principal that lives in Wyoming or Denver, and 0 principals who live in Montana.
It is interesting.
So they have no basis for complaining that they are discriminated against local companies. So I did want to share that information. You can't, of course, stop somebody from suing you, but I'm going to send them a letter and say, we went ahead and moved forward based on this information, and I hope that I can present a persuasive enough argument that they don't pursue it further. But that was something we did want to get resolved and taken care of, so I wanted to share with council that has been looked into and researched. A lot of city attorney time on that. Great West, do you have anything you want to add to that discussion, or?
No, honestly, we looked at it and are not lawyers, so we kicked it over to Dennison, and he did a incredibly, as always, thorough job. Yes, Dennison, for some, you get 20 pages.
Used to be an old joke that Truman said, give me a one-armed economist, please. On one hand, on the other hand, he's like, can I just get a one-armed economist? So, anyway, so I wanted to address that. The other part that I think is important for council and the public to be aware of is that several years ago, particularly because there's a discussion that we have a 1% resort tax that was approved that is specifically allocated for the stormwater. There's nothing that says that's the only source of stormwater within the ordinance as written. I understand there was some representation that may have been a concern about what was presented to the public, that this is there to pay for the stormwater. It may have been perceived that that was the only thing that was there. When the ordinance was originally set up, I forget the exact amount, I think it was $3.44 for maintenance of the stormwater system, but it also stated that there would in the future be a charge for the capital improvements. Of course, the dollar amount was not listed because the dollar amount wasn't known. Now that we have a bid out, the bid came in actually lower than expected. In fact, if you look, there's a couple of handouts that were presented. This is just shorthand for the information for the tables that were online. They can do Schedule 1, Schedule 1 and 2, or Schedule 1, 2, and 3. If we do Schedule 1, the stormwater rate would increase by $3 a month, which is $36 a year. If we do 1 and 2, and they have to be done progressively on each other, this rate would increase to $7.83 a month, which is $93 a year. And if we do Schedules 1, 2, and 3, which is actually what the initial recommendation is, based on the cost, the rate increase would be $10.40 a month, which is $124.80 a year. However, at the end of the year, meaning a year from now, there's a possibility this could run into the first of next year, but the idea is to have our stormwater project completed this year. The fear, as is articulated by Great West and also by our Public Works Director, is that all of the history and looking at other communities who've put it off and slowed down on it, it basically ends up costing as much for just the third part as it did for everything up front. So you're really, and so the question is, if we're trying to save the residents money, I could argue we're saving them money by doing this now. The other thing is that we had a flood a couple of years ago. Everybody's aware of the impact we had from that. Everybody's heard the stories of stormwater coming up through sewers and coming out. We had a hailstorm when?
2011.
2011, that dumped
Hailed.
enough water.
It hailed for an hour.
And where does that go when you don't have a stormwater system?
It went into the sewer system and up through, we had hail up, coming out of people's toilets.
Delightful.
And by the way, the impact of that is your insurance rates go up, or you don't have insurance. So one of the conversations I've had, Councilmember Ronning has been a insurance agent, and she looked at it and she said, this is, I'll let you say it, I'm not gonna say your words, you share what you share.
Well, I was the first one that said, you know, the 1% was for the stormwater. But, when that was passed, we hadn't had the flood. And honestly, that really, and then the cat loss hailstorm in 2011 with the hailstorm.
And for those of us who don't speak insurance, cat loss stands for?
Catastrophe. It's what an insurance company, calls when there's widespread damage in an area. They call it a cat loss. And Chris knows this because Mike was an adjuster. Anytime you have a hurricane or you have a big hailstorm, and they send in their team of adjusters to assess all the damage. So what happens, when that happens is that, you know, people spend years recovering as they are with the floods and getting their roofs replaced after a huge hailstorm like that. But, unfortunately, in this case, because it was hail that came up into people's houses, it wasn't considered a hail loss, it was considered flood, because it was surface water coming up into their house as frozen water. So basically, there is no coverage for that except unless you had flood insurance. And with flood insurance, there's really no coverage in a basement except for equipment that's pertinent to your house. And that's what people ran into with our flood. In 2022, it happened in my parents' house. All the flood water came up through the toilet and filled their basement full of water. They were the high point on Platte where there was no water in front of their house, and there was no water, you know, it had flooded the garage, but it had not flooded their house. What flooded their house was all the flood water coming up through the toilet. And there was no coverage for that on your homeowner's policy. There's no coverage on flood insurance policy, and you're not in the special flood hazard area, so you don't have it. So to me, this is, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's basically a very cheap insurance policy for people if we can stop that from happening in the future. And with the changes that have happened with Mother Nature, with climate change, I hate to say it, but I don't think it's like, if it's gonna happen again, it's when it's gonna happen again. I mean, that's kind of what we're down to, so.
Well, we need to keep the stormwater out of our sewer ponds.
We do, yes. And we almost lost our sewer ponds after that flood too because of all the stormwater going into them. It's not just about our yearly maintenance, it's about when that next catastrophe happens, are we going to be prepared for it? So, that's just my.
Any other discussion or comments?
Just thank you for putting together all the work and really showing us what the vulnerabilities are, what the benefits are for moving forward ahead of time, and then really just putting it down into those dollar amounts goes a long way, so if we can really make that justification.
And, our Public Works Director is here, Mike. This came in, so this will be in the packet next week for folks to review who don't get a chance to read it online. But Mike, do you mind taking just a moment or two and kind of summarizing, your recommendation and the thoughts behind it?
Sure. I think it's kind of what the mayor just talked about. I started out in that with just what Sandy just said, that we need to get the storm water out of our wastewater. Right now, we have a combined system where we're getting storm water in there, we're treating it, it's decreasing the capacity of our facility, and, we get it out of there, then we have more capacity for what it's designed for, houses and businesses. It touches on what happened during the flood, The stormwater was coming into the sewer plant, overflowing, trying to overflow the lagoons. The guys got down there with a lot of pumps and pumped it out. But we don't wanna do that again. Getting it out of the getting the stormwater out of the sewer also is gonna increase the effectiveness of our treatment and decrease how much we discharge to Rock Creek, so that's a good thing. And I think the most important thing is, or one of the most important things is, I really think waiting is just gonna add cost. You don't know what the future is gonna bring, but project costs have been going up a lot in the last 4 years. I think these guys can probably tell you that they always go up. And I like the fact that, Wilson Brothers did a really good job, according to everybody, and they're back. So it's good to have a good contractor, and if we put off, we may not have as good a contractor and a little better next time. And that's about it.
Any specific questions from the table for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Last chance for discussion from the table. Hearing none, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Conley?
Yes.
Or, are we, the schedule?
I'm sorry. So the motion that's in front of us is for Schedule 1, 2, and 3, and basically what you're authorizing. So let me back, because there was some questions, some clarification on this. So when we passed the original resolution, we said that someday there will be a capital improvement cost that will be there. We put this out to bid. We clarified last time that just because we put it out to bid does not mean we are bound to do anything. We could in fact say, thank you, no, not in the budget, we're not doing anything. We can do Schedule 1, we can do Schedule 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2, or 1, 2, and 3. This resolution was prepared based on the recommendation of our engineering firm and the recommendation of our public works director. And so the resolution as presented is for Schedules 1, 2, and 3, and what you're authorizing is me to go ahead and order the product, if you will, at which point we are bound. It's worth noting that those costs are not broken down on the monthly cost, because after this process happens, then it goes out to our bond agent, which does some math and calculations and does everything, and they come back with the real numbers, but historically, these numbers are very, very close. Doesn't matter whose calculator you're using, if you're adding up the same numbers, you come up with pretty close to the same answers. But once we have ordered the product, then we are bound to pay for it. So that's is there anything else you want to add to that, or you good with that? So as presented, what you're authorizing is me as mayor to go ahead and sign that, yes, we'd like you to come complete Schedules 1, 2, and 3. If you wanted to amend that as all as a council, that's the one that Lonnie modified, where it could be just Schedule 1 for that dollar amount, Schedule 1 and 2 and that's 909, Schedule 1 and 2 for 1.4, or Schedule 1, 2, and 3 for 3.1. So if anybody wished to make a motion, you could, but that would have happened when I'm saying discussion.
Well, I want to clarify that the stormwater project was broken into 3 phases. Phase 1 has been completed. Phase 2 and 3 were broken into 3 schedules.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
So think of it as 2A, 2B if it works, or however you want to think about it.
Well, I was saying that the resolution is to award Phase 2 and 3.
Schedule 1, 2, and 3, which is Phase 2 and 3.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
Yep. Right, Phase 2 and 3 is scheduled. Should have been A, B, and C. Color, give it a color. Yeah. Fine.
Lonnie, is there any other clarification you feel is appropriate I add to that? All right, there is a motion to approve Resolution 3647 as presented, which allows me to authorize 1, 2, and 3. Hearing no further discussion, may I get a roll call?
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you. Again, if the paper would like to reach out and talk to our Public Works Director or anybody, we're happy to help explain that logic. And it's not a decision we take lightly, but I think we're paying it now rather than paying it in increased insurance down the road and costlier doing it down the road. And it's gonna be, quite frankly, it's gonna be really, really cool to a year from now have the major portion of our stormwater system addressed.
Something I'm excited, yeah, and that's exactly it. I'm excited that after that is done, then we can get to work to actually getting the roads cleaned
Yeah.
up and pretty and
Yep.
gutters
And,
working.
and that 1% can be used for that process or to help pay off the, what's called an SRF, a state revolving fund loan. There's nothing that says we can't pay those off early. So that 1% can help us do that and then get that off of people's statements as well.
The 1% is there until it's completely paid for and the project is 100% completed.
That is correct. We get to continue to collect 1% resort tax for that purpose. We can also, by way of information, choose, should council choose to do so, we can choose to address money from the regular resort tax towards stormwater, just not the other way around. Stormwater money can only be used for stormwater. But if we had a great year and tons of extra money, we paid off the pool, we could throw some extra money at the SRF for the stormwater and get that paid off already too.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did say that there's sometimes those SRFs,
No, that's for water.
that's just for water, the loans are often given, not stormwater, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Now, the 1% for resort tax, I heard a number like 240,000 was collected last year for that 1%.
No, it was probably more than that.
I was gonna say, so it won't take a while at that 1%.
Yeah, if we were paying for this in $240,000 chunks, we'd have to save up for 5 or 10 years, and it wouldn't be cheaper then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
That's why we
it.
thought it was gonna take at least 10 years to do the project.
Yeah.
And the other thing worth mentioning, you were talking about roads. This year, there is a grant, there's some money that is available to do roads on top of stormwater. So there is a possibility that we could be eligible and able to take advantage of that. And we may be one of the few communities applying for that because we're one of the few communities getting the stormwater done to the point that we can do the roads, which would mean we would get some free money out of the process to help pretty things up.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Is there any correspondence that wasn't, other than what we just received? Any correspondence that anybody would like to report, that wasn't in the packet and will be in the packet next time? All right,
I did, and I guess it was more directed for Public Works and such, but it sounds like Mike took care of it pretty short order. We did get, some comment from some folks up at, the golf course, wanting some potholes filled in, and Mike responded very quickly. So just a thank you there, and I'm looking forward to having some of those potholes filled in with the golf course.
What about the rest of town?
Yeah.
just FYI. No,
No,
I'm aware that it is happening in town. I'll take this opportunity to publicly, thank Mike. I know that when Mike goes out and he drives on those roads and he hits a pothole, he says, that doesn't reflect well on me, and he takes care of it. And if the response is, well, we're just gonna have to do it again in 3 months, he says, then we'll do it again in 3 months. So, I very much appreciate, his continued attention, and I've received a couple of different emails. I saw that one from the homeowners association up there. I got another email today from somebody that reached out and got a good response. So Mike, thank you, you're doing a great job, appreciate it. All right, at this point, we'll turn this over to council. We didn't quite make it in an hour. We'll turn this over to council, and we'll start with the Public Health and Safety Committee.
Public health and safety. We had a discussion this morning of discharging fireworks in the city limits. It was decided to put the matter on the ballot to see if the residents of Red Lodge approve discharging fireworks in the city limits on the 4th of July between noon and midnight only. Jody wrote the resolution and the city council, for the city council to put it on the ballot. Next, we're gonna run that past Dennison to approve her edit, and then we will check with county election officials to make sure our wording is approved for the ballot. And then the city council will have a vote on proceeding. We discussed public safety district. Chief Schrock said that since January 2020 to date, the Red Lodge Police Department conducted 684 traffic stops outside the city limits in a 5-mile bubble around town, and received 491 calls for service in that 5-mile bubble. So that means that our police department serves that area roughly 500 times a year without compensation. There appears to be 3 ways to fund our PD for those areas. One is to create a public safety district. That requires a vote of the citizens, but it also requires a vote of the county in that 5-mile bubble. And since our meeting this morning, I did speak with Commissioner Bullock, who said that then there would have to be a board developed, and then that would have to, it just got worse and worse the more he talked. So it didn't sound like that was going to happen, because then there would be a board to distribute the funds, and we wouldn't get the money for the police department the way we thought we might be able to get the money for the police department. We also thought about annexing the 3 subdivisions that are in the county that currently have city sewer. And I know Public Works is working on that to come up with a cost to provide services. Again, Commissioner Bullock told me that Remington Ranch is a huge problem, for snow removal, that many times they get stuck up there with their equipment and have to get a tractor to push it out of the way, because the snow up there is even worse than down here, and thought they would love us to take it over, but they don't think that the city has the equipment to do so. And also suggested that we check the subdivision regulations that allowed us to annex it, whether or not we have to supply water, definitely have water available, and if we have to do curbs, gutters, and lights. So the annexing was kind of a toughie. And the other one is to change the resort tax allocation. Again, this will require a vote. But right now, the resort tax can be used to purchase a police car, but not someone to drive it. So what we're looking for and trying to find for our public safety is to fund 1 more police officer. We have 7 right now, the same amount we had 30 years ago. So 1 officer is almost always off the street doing investigation, and we're trying to be able to fund 1 more officer, or find the funding, and it's not in our general fund. The fire department budget review, I should probably turn that over to you. We were trying to find money from the resort tax in the fire department budget for capital expenditures, but Jody said that we can't.
That was me. Our auditor said that we cannot do that because we have a contract based on mills with our fire department.
Oh, wait, that's not the biggest problem.
No, the biggest problem is that the fire department is a separate entity, and the capital that they purchase does not belong to the city. So we cannot, our resort tax can be used to purchase capital for a city department, but the fire department is not a city department. They're a separate entity that we contract our fire services with.
And if we'd been smart, we'd have realized that, because when we reached out and had that same question on whether we could use resort tax to help fund CART, for instance, the answer was no, you can't use city money to buy equipment for another government agency. And the fire department is basically, or non-government agency, the fire department is a government agency, but we still can't use Red Lodge money to buy their capital expenditures. So that's probably the bigger obstacle for us there, so.
Yeah, so it kind of looks like if we want to fund
Back to the drawing board.
If we want to fund another officer, we're gonna need to look to change the resort tax.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What would it look like if we just stopped providing service for that 5-mile radius.
They're actually,
I'm not suggesting
can't.
that we do that, I'm just wondering if that,
Well, part of it is an interlocal agreement with the county, and we provide service outside the city limits, and the county provides services inside the city limit as our backup for a lot of different, serious calls. And then also, we do get a discount on our, dispatch services, well, it's 30% because we provide that service. So they give us a 30% discount
So
on
in one
dispatch.
sense, we do get reimbursed
We do.
for that, in that we pay a discounted fee for our dispatch fees.
Yeah, for the county dispatch.
yeah, so.
But, yeah, and according to, I don't want to put words in Chief Schrock's, but he basically said that he very much so values that relationship with the county law enforcement. When we had a very serious incident here earlier this year or the end of last year, he had one officer on duty, and, they absolutely needed the county, and, everyone responded. It wasn't just the city response.
And that becomes a safety issue at that point for them. Their number one job is to all go home to their families at night.
Yeah.
thank you for addressing that. And again, just to be clear, I was not suggesting that.
Right, no,
No.
no, but yeah.
And for the public's general information, so our city budget is this big, but most of that is in what is called enterprise funds. So we talked about, like, the stormwater money comes in, that's the only thing that can go for it. Water and sewer come in, that's the only thing those can go for. So the part of our budget that we have control over is a little piece of pie called the general budget, and that's where we end up spending 90% of our discussion, or 95 or 99. Hopefully this year we'll at least talk about the bigger picture. And then we have resort tax. So we have two very small pieces of the pie that we have some variability in and some flexibility in. And so that's why we're struggling and looking, because when you're only dealing with that much of the pie, the only way you can make more available for somebody else is to take it away from somebody else, which is one of the reasons that we have our public works director looking into the math to say, will it be financially wise or financially dumb to grow the city and bring those property taxes into the city? And the questions that were asked are questions we are actively looking into. I don't believe that we have to provide water. There's a lot of places in the city. We do have some regulations that say if water is within a certain distance, then they have to tap into it. It doesn't say the city is obligated to make water be there. And so, and there's a lot of places, in fact, where our public works director comes from up in Shoto, they've got all sorts of people that are on wells, and people don't want to do that. So we have looked into what their resolutions are. We actually have a policy and a resolution that says what our criteria is to evaluate annexation within the city. So Lonnie was able to chase down some internal code we have, and right now that stuff is still all in the hopper. I think at the point that our public works director comes in and makes a recommendation and convinces me that that's a wise move, then that's something we would bring to council. Ultimately, that's the legislative body's decision, and we'll try to provide you with the best information available so you can make the best decision possible. Thank you, Sandy. I'm sorry, Councilmember Conley.
At least he remembers my last name.
Wow.
All right, let's go to admin and finance. Who's the chair there?
I am. So we, kind of had a carryover of our, public safety meeting. We, primarily talked about the fact that, our general fund is hurting a lot, and we aren't going to be able to get some relief from resort tax to help pay for our fire department contract like we had hoped. So we kind of brainstormed, again, ideas on how to help that. Ultimately, Chris and I are going back to the resort tax committee to really encourage them to do a new survey, because it has been 5 years since we've done a survey on priorities for spending resort tax, in hopes that public safety and emergency services will be higher up on that list of, spending for our resort tax. We realizing that there's only so much resort tax money out there as well, so it may lower, some of what's being spent elsewhere. But, we need that public input on that, because ultimately, I do agree, I think it would be nice to ask the voters once again to, would you allow us to spend, resort tax money on emergency services and public safety, which would be our fire department contract, help pay for that fire department contract, and to, help pay some of our police department. Between our police and our fire, we are close to $1 million a year out of our general fund, so And that basically is just about all of our property tax that's collected. So it leaves very little for there's no wiggle room there. It makes it very hard to give raises to people and to balance the budget, which we have to do. We can't have a deficit like our federal government does, so. Anyway, and we also, talked a little bit about our budget timeline, which the mayor has already talked about. Just so, everybody knows, in June, we are voting on forming a commission to, look at a change in government. And we've been talking about trying to get that word out there, to people so they understand and are educated on that decision, on forming that committee, or that commission, I guess it's called.
Yeah, we're gonna be asking you guys for the groups that you're involved in,
Yep.
Rotary, Elks, any place where you can get that word out. We're gonna make a little flyer that has just the basic facts on, so you can let people know what it's all about.
Yep. Try and make it as easy to understand as possible, really understand the pros, the cons, what that truly looks like in that process. And again, getting ourselves out there in the public in front of people that we know, again, Elks Club and, Rotary Club, all of those
Post
types of
office.
places, post office.
Senior Citizen Center.
I know, anything.
School packets.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, we want people to be informed on this, realize that they're not voting for a change in government, they're just voting on forming the commission, to investigate, what would it look like, how would we pay for it?
Yeah.
And then a recommendation would be made then for a vote, November of 2025.
Yeah.
So it's a ways out, but, we do this every 10 years, so.
Yep, and I think really telling folks what that end result could look like, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks don't really understand what a change of government could be, and it'd be nice to give folks a really clear idea of what that looks like, so.
Right. And then last but not least, we did, kind of do a little bit, rundown on the audit with Lonnie. And honestly, there weren't any huge surprises. It was nice to see a lot of the issues that were pointed out last year, had been resolved. And to just realize that the audit isn't necessarily them coming in looking for, horrible things that the city is doing wrong. It's a way to point out things so that we can make sure we're following state and federal laws and improve what we're doing. So that was good for doing things.
The fact that we want him to do a presentation.
Oh, yes. Well, just, we would like to, down the road, work on a presentation of the audit itself, of what those findings were and how we would how the city is working to improve those.
All right, so that would that be in mayor's reports and comments, or just to the standing committee?
No, in public
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And admin and finance would absolutely help you do that.
Yep,
All right.
we can team up.
I know, but I don't want, people to think that the city is doing horrible things with their, with the way we're running things.
Transparent about it, that's the big thing, we want
Yeah.
to really put this forward of, this is
the finding, this is why they found this, and this is what we're doing to make it so that it's resolved at our next audit. Yep.
I have this little note card up here. Conduct business consistently and with transparency.
Okay.
So absolutely, I'm on board. That's one of our goals.
Perfect.
Certainly one of my goals. So I have
All right.
added that down to the little yellow sticky note, which is action items for the mayor to take away from the
All right.
meeting.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, let's go to the land use and planning.
Yeah. We discussed the abandonment of a right-of-way, which basically was abandoning Daly Street between 8th and 9th, or a portion thereof. We actually talked about only lots 4 and 5, not just 5, to abandon Daly. Daly is a platted street that has been eroded by Rock Creek over the years. The plat was from 1965, so it's been a few years that the creek has been eating away. And Daly, basically isn't any of the streets that people here have ever traveled on. At least not knowingly.
Not without getting their feet wet.
I mean, so what happened, of course, with the flood, and it was right there at the 9th Street Bridge, it took out, lot 6, lot 5 that had a house on it. And so they've been rebuilding that area. We're only discussing lots 4 and 5 for abandoning Daly Street. If, in fact, the owners of lot 3 and lot 6 choose to also, have Daly abandoned, they'd have to come in front of us. But right now, we have an application to abandon Daly Avenue for lots 4 and 5.
Chairmember Conley, may I?
Please.
So this was something that originally came in, and it was a little different than what we've used with before. When I was on council, I actually dealt with a couple of right-of-way abandonments, little roads that went up to the creek and died, and somebody had built a shed on it back in 1902 or, you know, something, and it was still there. And so they came to the city council to get those right-of-ways abandoned. And what happens is when you abandon a right-of-way, that land reverts to the adjacent landowner. If it was an alley between two properties, you'd split it and they'd each get half. What was unique about this situation is that our city attorney, who used to work with the state waterways and in his history, said, well, you know, when the water comes by in, fancy word, evulsion or something, and takes away the land, the right-of-way is deemed abandoned automatically. We don't have to take an action. The challenge that we ran into is we all gonna die. So 50 years from now, when somebody comes in and has a question, what is the paper trail that goes back and explains what happened and why this happened?
Yep.
And so we started out that the city attorney provided a letter to me, and that was provided in the packet. And in that, there's only one section of municipal code that's really referenced down in the bottom, 70-18-206. And when I got this letter and looked at it, that was a different process that you go through, which is you reach out to DEQ or Natural Resources, and they look at it and study it and fast ponder and pray, and then they get back with you in a year or two. And then there's this process that you go back and forth. And we had this realization, and by the way, if you look at page 3, which is the map, it would only address part of lot 4, because that's the only part that was actually completely removed by the river in the map. I guess if I could have pulled it up, but I don't have it right here, but, go ahead.
Where is Daly Street on this map?
So see to the right where all the writing is?
Yep,
That's Daly, that's the right of way right there.
okay.
You have to go back to the Red Lodge original plat, 1965, and that clearly shows Daly.
Okay, when I was reading it, that, the office was not open.
So anyway, so the short version is, these folks would like to rebuild their house. They want to rotate it just a little bit. They want to have a back porch so that they could enjoy their views. And according to the setbacks, they have to lop off a corner to make it work, which is an option. But is it necessary if there's some land over there that is actually rightfully theirs now that it's been abandoned? But how do we do it openly, transparently, and consistency? And the answer was, we had them fill out a right-of-way abandonment agreement. There is, in the interest of time, there is a legal notice that is going into the paper tomorrow that says we're gonna have a public hearing after 15 days, which puts us on the 30th of April, which is the 5th Tuesday, which would normally be an extra week off for us. Instead, what it'll do is it'll be a special council meeting. I talked to a few folks, so I feel comfortable that we have, just out of curiosity, how many people are gonna be available on the 30th, or could be available? 1, 2, 3, 4, I see a quorum, we're good. So what we're doing is we're going through the normal process that would normally happen. I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back and reclaim, the time that we lost in that, but that's basically what this is happening is, what's the right way to do this? As was mentioned, there are people to the north and to the south that may do that as well. It's not a given where the river didn't take it away that the city has to abandon the right of way. That, we could say that would be a lovely trail, the city would like to put a park there. The parts where the red is, legally, that decision has been made for us, but we still need to create a paper trail. But keep in mind that we may have the lots just to the north or the lot just to the south that come and say, I want that extra 4 feet or 5 feet on my property too, because that allows me to build my porch without a corner cut out of it.
Apparently, the lot to the north has about 1 foot left of daily, so it wouldn't make a very good trail.
And that will be a decision that comes to the legislative body, and you guys will make that decision. So,
So,
On April 30th.
just to add, there is no, easement, city easements or utility easements in there that we need to protect.
other
Like that.
than the right of way as of itself.
Okay, yeah, and my only comment was, is I know that, the trail had wanted us to preserve as much of our right-of-way on the creek as possible, but if it's already been, it's gone.
In the area where the red is there, my understanding as it's been explained to me is that it's already gone. We just need to document it.
There's nothing there, the city right-of-way is gone.
To the lot north of that, it was, I got to stick my head in for 5 minutes in that meeting today. They said you could have a walking trail, which is now a dead-end trail, and then it would turn into a hopping trail.
At 1 foot.
And then you could maybe go back into a walking trail on the other side. So, anyway. And by the way, between now and the 30th, you can all go out down there and drive and look at it.
Can we walk down
To give you an idea, Chris, this is Daly, or was Daly in 1965, and these are the lots we're discussing. And now, it's more like this little tiny bit here, and it's pretty much this is gone. So.
Just if you all go together, not more than 3 of you at the same time, please.
Okay.
Field trip. These are lots of and Daly's more like.
Given that we're planning to do that, so I have I hear that I have a quorum that will be available. We will plan on doing a public meeting, so that will get printed in Thursday's paper. It'll run for 15 days, which actually is the Thursday. We looked at Friday or Tuesday, and the 1 or 2 council members I got to spoke with said they were happier with Tuesday than Friday.
What time on the 30th?
It would be, I believe it's 6 o'clock is what we're, the ad is saying 6 o'clock. So it's our normal meeting. It'll just be
Shorter.
much.
Is anybody interested in, prior to the meeting, to go look at the property with me?
It's very interesting to see what they've rebuilt up over there. I mean, it really is amazing and really sad that the Campbells lost their home, and that there is a nice garage, more than I have. But, yeah, we have abandoned other portions of Daly. My recollection is that we have.
Yeah, that was one of them that I think I was part of, was a
I
part of
think
the
it's the
daily.
one between here, between 11th and 10th. We abandoned Daly there as well.
And I fully anticipate that at least the possibility that somebody may show up and say, no, never give away city land ever, ever, ever.
Mhm.
You know, no, not a beautiful 1 foot strip next to the river. But again, that comes to this legislative body to make that decision. That would follow in that quasi judicial category where you're not making laws, you're applying them. And so, you want to make sure that you are being consistent. But again, that's one of our goals, right? Consistency and transparency.
That's it. Okay, to the next thing that we discussed was the pasture lease between Bushnell and Botteroff, which, the monies that they were to pay were returned because the lease is sadly lacking a legal description.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really say what land was being leased, actually. It was a guess. Luckily, Eric was at the meeting today, and he took, he gave us a physical locked off what they really are talking about. And there needs to be a new fence on the east side, so it's roughly 80 acres. It's just a portion of parcel 3 certificate of survey 1874, which is where? It's on the very top of above the sewer pond.
Okay.
On, East Bench Road. Okay. So what happens right now is the city, spreads its
Used to.
sludge.
They don't
It-
do it.
We have sewer ponds now.
Eric told me that was happening.
Like,
Anyway, and said that the land,
Like,
that there's also no water up there for this pasture lease. That there is a 10-foot test hole, which is all over the east bench I've seen, that sometimes they can get water out of. Other than that, they have to haul water in. So they generally, have 6 to 12 horses up there, sometimes cows, but they only use them, what was it?
Non-consumable.
They're non-consumable, and bucking.
I was gonna say that.
bucking stuff
Bucking stock,
with a B.
maybe bucking stock. So they're non-consumable bucking stock. Okay, we recommended in the committee that we go ahead and accept their payment for the lease this year, because it starts May 1st, which is roughly 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And it's kind of too late for them to go find another place. But then in the next year, we need to fix this, lease agreement. We need the definition of what as much legal description as we can. I don't mind that it's part of parcel 3, certificate of survey 1874, but we could say that it's 80 fenced acres.
Yeah, there's a lot we can add to
Yeah,
it that needs
there-
to.
Yeah, that needs to be.
And that's the reason why we're not gonna rush into it. We're gonna make.
And one other thing is there's nothing in here about liability to the city, that they should carry the insurance in case somebody gets hurt there.
Right.
By their bucking stock.
Yeah, yeah, well, they're supposed to carry the insurance regarding livestock insurance, but that doesn't free the city of liability.
Right.
If I may?
Yeah.
So, you guys all have a copy of this lease. This is something that was reported, hey, there's not a lease, there hasn't been a lease signed since 2018.
Has there been payment?
There has been. So the lease is actually, if you read the lease, down in number 18, it says, lease shall renew each year on May 1st. So the reality is,
It annually.
there is a lease that it annually renews. Now, according to our legal counsel, that should have a 5-year cap before it comes back in and goes out. Now, I was part of council when this came up the first time, and my recollection is that we did put it out to the public, and he was the low bidder. So,
The high bidder?
or the high bidder, sorry. Sorry, yeah, this is us collecting money, he was the high bidder. And so I don't have a problem with doing that again, but at this point, this is kind of an administrative thing. The reality is, the check did not get returned, actually. My understanding is we're still holding the check.
Yeah, Eric hasn't, he didn't, I
Yeah,
told him to
yeah.
hold on to his, and then.
So we have held the check, but knowing that there was a discussion, and knowing that there are some problems with this lease is lacking, the fact that it lacks a legal description, the fact that it's gone on for, this is 2024, so it's now more than 5 years without being done. The question is, do we give up that $600 that we're getting? Or do we say, yes, and it sounds like you guys have a recommendation, yes, go ahead and take money for this year, and then what we're looking for council to do is clarify the lease and the MOU's procedure, but what we will do is we will notify them via letter that I will send the notice at the end of the current year, is what I'm understanding. At the end of the current year, this lease will end.
Automatically terminate.
Well,
Or 30
I'm providing them the notice that it'll end at the end of the current year. And then the anticipation is that prior to the end of that year, we will come up with a more gooder lease.
Yep.
And address the terms and concerns that are in it.
Yep, that's.
Is that the consensus of council?
Yeah,
Just-
well,
This
and,
doesn't really need to be a formal motion, I'm just getting a consensus, because
Yeah.
this is just exercising.
well, and typically, ag leases are based on the number of head of
Right.
animals that are on there. So somehow or another, that should be built in there.
We
know,
somewhat
and-
discussed that.
Because, and it's based on the rate, I mean, I would want it in here somewhere that it's the going rate for Montana ag leases. Based on grazing. And, you know, there's usually cow-calf pairs, or if, you know, per head. And yes, not having water on it may, you know, negatively affect that for sure.
Well,
But
and we were,
there's rates out there, through the Montana State University Extension Office.
so
and
the
stuff like
sludge
that,
is
so.
no longer being spread up there?
Right now. No.
I believe it's like a cemetery, though, if it's ever happened. My understanding, when I was on council, so I'm recalling several years ago, it can never go through a process that ends up on your dinner table. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
can't turn a cow loose on that and graze it and turn it into steaks.
Right.
You can't turn a cow loose on that and then get milk from that cow. You can't raise vegetables on that land, which you're then going to eat. Now, you can go buy a bag of manure at the hardware store and spread it on your veggies at home, that's okay. But this land, you can only use for stuff that's not gonna end up on your dinner plate.
Non-consumable stock, and that should probably also be in this lease.
And we've got a year to work on it.
And we've got, let's say, 10 months to work on it, not more than 10 months. Sooner is gooder.
Well, their lease
not
is
tonight.
up,
Yeah.
October 31st, so. Anyway, so we
Okay.
did have a lot of discussion on that.
Okay?
We had a little bit of discussion on MOUs versus leases, and we just need to pull them all and see if there's anything consistent within those leases or MOUs, or disband the use of MOU, which hasn't been a practice as long as I thought it was. But anyway, this is something we have to look at. And, that was it. That was the gist of the meeting.
All right, and then resolution 3648 to execute with proper authority, the MOU, is that okay for action for next time?
That's public works.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're doing that.
I'm adopted. Okay. All right, thank you. Public Works.
Hi. Speaking of resolution number 3648, last year, well, over a year ago, an MOU between the City of Red Lodge and the All Nations Garden Club was executed, but without the direction of council. So this resolution is, I'll just read the title. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Red Lodge, Montana, authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with the All Nations Garden Club of Red Lodge for the care and maintenance of Pride Park, a city-owned property. So, the All Nations Garden Club has offered to, assume some of the care and maintenance of Pride Park. And the city has encouraged civic organizations to be involved with parks. And it's in the City of Red Lodge's best interests and goals to provide clean, well-kept park facilities. So, this is authorizing the mayor to finalize this MOU agreement and take necessary action. So, just a discussion for tonight, but I would like to have this on the agenda for action next meeting. Yep? Yep. Okay. Couple other things.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We decided to pass resolution number 3644, intent to create Rodeo Park, pass that back to land use and planning. You guys are on that. We talked about the, readdressing project, and, basically, there are 151 addresses that will be affected by that, and Mike put together some really nice, I think you guys all got a copy of this, but ours are in color. These are the blue, the green dots are what, are going to require an address change, and the red dots are the intersections that will require a new sign. Mike put together a nice budget for what the proposed cost will be. Tom Coley will be here at our next meeting to explain the importance of this. But the standing committee thought before we proceed, it would be a good idea to send a letter to all 151 affected properties that will have to change addresses. We also looked at trying to help them get some of those changes going for them, if wherever possible, if we can, you know, do it on Google, if we can notify the county, just anything that we can do to help them, because they'll still have a lot of work ahead of them. But we'd also like to get those 151 people feedback before we move forward with that. So, are you?
Keep in mind your construction season is fast approaching, and so, so keep your efforts scalable. Let's not overwhelm city staff with stuff that they have to do, but if it's putting together a packet, telling them where to go, we can do that.
Or just mailing a letter,
Yeah.
saying this is gonna happen, and maybe having a public meeting.
And then,
Just to let people, because I think down the road that will save city staff time, because they'll know everything, and they'll have some buy-in, perhaps, or not. So they won't have to deal with irate people.
yeah.
Oh, they'd rather have to anyway.
Yeah, so really, the intention is to try and have some public awareness for people who will be affected. Also doing a lot of groundwork right now of reaching out to the bodies that will be affected. And the, you know, whether that's the title company, county clerks and recorders, how we get those deeds changed, all of those types of pieces, figuring out really what that list looks like, so we really know how much they're gonna have to do, and then providing them resources where these are the things that are gonna have to be changed, and if we get enough feedback, like, that's really what we're looking for, is community feedback on how these people affected are going to feel about it, and also providing them a presentation of why it is important.
So it's a lot more than changing the numbers next to your door on the
It's
front
not,
door.
the numbers won't change, it's only the streets that will
Yeah.
change, they will still have the same.
Oh, that's true,
house address.
the numbers
Mhm.
are the same.
So I'm
Okay.
confused, the city council has already
Numbers change
approved
too.
it, why are we putting it back out there for approval?
What?
The city council approved readdressing.
Because the mayor wanted direction from us on whether or not we wanted to proceed with the project, because it was passed a long time ago.
And I thought that we had a vote, the last meeting or the meeting before, that said we didn't want to proceed.
No,
Discussion.
we just, we've never voted on it.
And don't we have $40,000 that have been carried forward in the budget all those years, and now it's only $18,000?
No, that's what he is budgeting, and then there'll still be additional labor needed.
That's not
So
including labor.
that's not including the labor costs. Those hours there still need totals. And again, that doesn't include any sort of work in trying to help get these people the information that they
If there's a
need.
place that we can consolidate some of the changes that need to be made, you know, to make it a little more streamlined for the constituents who are gonna be affected, what we're
Yep.
trying to accomplish.
So to restate, the mayor said, hey, do you guys want to move forward with this? Council, having talked about it a little bit, says, before we give you an answer, we want to reach out to our constituents and get their input.
Yeah, due diligence.
Okay?
Okay, and how are we gonna do that?
That's what they were.
Well, we talked about doing a letter to those 151 addresses and just letting them know, what we're proposing, and then have a public meeting,
Town hall type.
yeah,
meeting
where they
with
can
the-
come and.
If only like
ask
we had a
questions.
town newspaper or something that we could publish that information in. Yeah. We're keeping you busy tonight, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, I always used to joke that our job is not to sell papers not to sell papers, but we've had a lot of subjects tonight that I can see making it out there.
So yeah, ideally, we'd like to do something really similar to what we did with the Urban Renewal District, where we actually have a sit-down presentation for the folks that will be directly affected, or anyone who's interested in coming.
And given that we have a presentation scheduled for the 23rd, if we can get an article out there in the paper, then they could come to the next meeting in 2 weeks and Tom Coley could explain why it is they think
Yeah,
it's
Tom will be
important.
here on the 23rd to talk
Yep.
about it. Yeah, which will be an additional, information point for people.
So this affects everyone who lives on a numbered street.
On an east-west street.
So numbered east-west street.
Yep. So if you have the address 701 15th, that would be something that would change.
Yeah.
If you live on 209 Platt, that will not change.
Right.
So these are the.
It's
homes.
8% of city property.
Yep.
These are
And there
the-
would be some
Right.
businesses as well who would probably be taking the largest financial impact on these.
And then the last thing we talked about, can you say?
Go ahead, you're good.
Last thing we talked about were impact fees, and, Mike is recommending that we wait until the CIP is finished, before we look at that. So we're sort of tabling that until maybe a month or two down the road.
Yeah. But ideally, this would be coming out in the spring.
The spring of 2024?
Yep, spring of 2024, and at that point, likely.
Was that last week or next week?
Right, great question. So, really, it's July, let's be honest.
So that's all I have.
All right.
Do you guys, anything else that's?
No, you covered it, you're good.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah.
In the, MOU with the garden club, somebody asked me, it was actually Sherry at the chamber, where it says the city shall, on number 4, pay for sign construction. What kind of sign?
So essentially, that could vary, and that'd be something that goes through the Parks Board budget. So, for instance, wayfinding signage or identification of signs, I know that's something that the Parks Board has been in discussion on.
Okay,
So, trying to update some of the signage throughout some of our parks, especially the ones that either A, have zero signage, or B, deteriorating quickly. And so it has been something that they're working on getting budgeted with Mike and
Okay.
bringing.
and I think Sherry's only ask, was that if they do some type of sign there because it's so prominent with tourism and stuff like that, would be to use our branding. Yes.
And that has actually already been discussed with Parks Board as well,
Okay.
is that we have already reached out to Sherry at the chamber to try and get bids from her to make those consistent.
Perfect.
So,
And you know that the signs have to be approved by the planning board.
no, I'm not gonna do that, no, I'm just kidding.
And I'm wondering if in signs you're also referring to the mural on the side of the building.
I don't think
We
that,
include murals as signs.
yes, so
Are you
again, I'm not
planning
sure if we include that in the budget portion though. Because I would think that that mural on the side of the building would actually be a part of the Grizzly Peak Outdoor Store, because it's attached to their building.
I would look for guidance on council when you say, yes, go authorize, go sign this agreement, comma, maybe after looking at this clause or that clause, and come with some recommendations.
We'll have land use look at it as well.
That'd be great.
Anything else from council that council wants to see on the agenda? All right, hearing nothing, we will go ahead and open up for public comment. This is the public's opportunity to comment in anything within city jurisdiction, not on the agenda. You can make us aware of or anything you need, but again, it is public comment, not public discussion. So I'll go ahead and open public comment at this time. Anyone in the room first? Anyone online? Public comment? Going twice? Going 3 times? Closing the public comment on the agenda. I will take a motion for item number 14.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Wow, look at that go.
Don't jinx it.
Progress.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and for hanging with us.
That was the funniest thing I ever saw. I was on like 5 or 6.
Yeah, no, that's.
Four.
I was hungry.